Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James, and unfortunately we don't have Stephen George. Stephen had to fly away to a family emergency, unfortunately. He might be able to join us later. I'm not too sure whether he'll be able to do that, but fingers crossed everything's okay on his side, and we'll find out, and as soon as we can, he'll probably text me and let me know. But good evening anyway. It's Sunday, February the 7th, 2016, and it's been a funny evening already because our plan is to have Pattie Brassard, Karen MacDonald and Sergeant Daniel Brad MacBolen on the show. Now, Pattie unfortunately also had to run away for a family emergency. A member of her family was in a car crash and she's had to head off. And again, she said that she'll try and get on as if she can get back in time for the show, at least at the end of the show, if she can get back on. So, but we still have Daniel and we have Karen, and we're going to have loads of things to talk about, loads of updates of things that have been going on globally, because it's just, I don't know how people feel about things, but the world seems to be going mad, you know, things that are going on. And we have another storm coming in called Storm Imogen. And it seems now that once a week we have a storm coming in, and we really don't know what's going on, but we can talk to Daniel and Karen about that in a few minutes. But before that, let's find out what the communication channels are.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Okay, you know where to find us. Our website is oymradio.com, and you can find us on Facebook, and you can find us on YouTube, and you can find us on TuneIn Radio. Unfortunately, I don't have all the details. Steve normally knows all this off by heart, and Steve is the man to do it, but the details are there. If you go to our Facebook page, we have a link up there for all that information, and you'll find it there. Now, before we bring in Daniel and before we bring in Karen, just a few things that we'd like to announce as usual. Now, we've updated our wish list on the OYM radio website, and to let you know the current status of the few things outstanding and the equipment installations that we were planning to have. I'd also like to thank the listeners who donated to equipment to us. A big thank you to them. The person who specifically that came over from Europe and met up with us and gave us some equipment. Again, a big thank you for that. Much needed. Big help. And for all the donations that comes in to OYM, I mean, it really is much appreciated when the donations come in, because it really keeps the wheels in motion this side. So a big thank you to everyone regarding donations. And if you can afford a few quid, by all means, it'd be great if you can send it down to us. That'd be brilliant. I know things are tight. I know we have austerity, so it's understandable if you can't. Now, also, we have the 300k plan on the website as well. Don't forget that. The 300k plan is just something that myself and Steve put together, and we said that if there was a philanthropist out there or a millionaire or somebody that has money and they don't have the time to put the effort in to work to, make changes to society, make changes to the system, what's going on, but they want to donate some money to OYM to do it, well then we'd be more than happy to do that. And all the information will be there on the website, what we want to do with the 300k plan. So you can go over to there and you can check it out and see what you think yourself. Now, we have the Pain Genie course. Just another call out for this. The Pain Genie course is going to be down in Kerry. It's on the 21st of February 2016. And this is part one of the Pain Genie course. Myself and Steve are aiming to be down there, and apparently there's going to be some people down there that is going to be very interesting backgrounds as well. We're going to try and get some interviews done with these people as well and play them later on in shows for the couple of weeks after. So that's the plan of attack with that. And as I said, on the list as well, Storm Imogen coming in. So just be aware, tie everything down, batten the hatches down, because apparently you're going to have wind speeds of up to 120 kilometers an hour. And I just don't get, these storms. Every week there seems to be a storm happening. Now, we know about HAARP and things that are going on there with HAARP and, more chemtrails. We're seeing it all the time. And during the week, For those of you who probably haven't seen the our Facebook page, I put up a video of clouds that I filmed on video during the week. I call them rainbow clouds because I've never seen them before. Very, very strange. So I shot a video I had my mobile phone with me, shot it on my mobile phone, and it's up on their YouTube channel. So if you want to go over to the channel, it's called, it's youtube.com/OYM Internet Radio, and you can have a look at that video. And it's just the clouds had all different kind of colours. And there's a few comments there, people saying that they've seen them in other parts of their country or globally in other countries around the world. So it's just interesting that them clouds had them colours. Now we do have financial information, which I'm not going to read out till later. I'll talk about it later. Just things that are going on, because we know the markets are up and down, and we are waiting for the collapse to happen. Really, that's really what we feel is going to happen there. In the next, maybe, I don't know, next few weeks, maybe next year, maybe next 2 years. We don't know for sure. But we just kind of have to keep an eye on what's going on. But apparently, on the website yournewswire.com, the central banks announced introduction of e-dollar. Now, I don't know whether this e-dollar is in competition with the Bitcoin, but they're saying that the central banks are planning to launch a new form of digital currency as governments and banks begin phasing physical cash currency out of circulation. Now, we all know they want to do that. We've heard about this before. And even over here in Ireland, there was a bank in Kells, I forget the name of the bank, National Westminster, I'm not too sure. But we've talked about this before. One of the banks in Kells closed down, moved to Navan, and they won't accept cash. They'll only accept the likes of checks and bank drafts and stuff like that. So it's beginning to happen, and other countries are looking to do it, and it just gives them the excuse to actually manipulate the currency and manipulate the financial markets even more. So I don't know where we're going to go with that, but maybe Karen or maybe Daniel might know about that. But so what we're going to do is we're going to bring Daniel and Karen in and have a talk with them, and we're going to catch up on what's going on globally. I'll maybe talk about a few things in the background. Now, Daniel and Karen have been on the show before, and we went through their background and their history, so we're not really going to go over all ground. If you want to find out more about Karen and Daniel, then you can actually listen to old pods, because we want to focus on what's going on now and getting update information. Hopefully, maybe Steve might turn up while the show is being aired, and hopefully Pattie might be able to jump back in while the show is going on. If not, we're going to get a lot of information from Daniel and Karen. So, without further ado, good evening, Daniel and Karen. How are you doing?
Ladies first.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And we wanted to thank all the listeners here at Open Your Mind Radio.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming on. Well, listen, guys, thanks for jumping in and coming on, and Daniel coming on board as well. Because off air, before the show went live, I said to you, God, what's going on in the world? I mean, it just seems to be going mad with everything that's going on. So I'm not too sure where we can start. I mean, do we start off? Would we start off with the weather? Let's start off with what you think's happening about the weather. With all these storms, nearly once a week we're getting these storms coming in, and all different names. So I don't know if you want to start, Karen, and give us your understanding or your take on what's happening from a weather point of view.
Well, thank you very much. Kind of as I understand it, I have the advantage of course, being with Sergeant Daniel MacBolen and the Micmac tribal elder, Pattie Brassard, who's also a former sergeant in the U.S. Army. With the kind of technology that I've been able to see a lot of it, and, one day, I agree, we've got chemtrails one day, we've got a storm the next, and I just set up into our Sacred Kin domain in our embassy, which is just south of Ottawa, here, and I mean, it was absolutely gorgeous for a couple days, and all of a sudden I've got another 6 inches of snow, which, by the way, I can see chemicalization, lots of colors, and lots of microfilaments, fibers. So people need to be really aware that there is some sort of, geoforming going on, definitely. We know that we've got a lot of things. I used to develop, orgone generators and things like that. There are definitely things that we've been able to investigate, things to do with what we call PPAI, which Dan's quite well versed in, and so is Alfred Webinar. And that's something that's called a predatory pathogenic, almost like a pandemic, sort of artificial intelligence. A lot of it's in the fluids, a lot of it's through the patents, a lot of it's through water, but it's a programmable, like a black sentient goo that Miles Johnson talks about in the BASIS program, number 46, 47, and 53 these days. So that's something that, the weather has gone crazy. And I look at it when I see the, ozone, methane, saline, all these different things that are very well documented and very well done by Sergeant Daniel MacBolen, but also they're for viewing at Pattie L. Brassard's Facebook on the albums. We've been documenting the weather changes. And I know a lot of people like Dan Wigington and stuff, they've got a lot on engineering itself. A lot of it is for what some people believe to be transhumanism, for dumbing down, for destroying our different strands of DNA, which is, again, that's something that we're looking at the repair, and I'm more concerned about how we repair some of this using things like essential oils, skew radionics. I had been looking at one point at the Keshe machine and found out from my investigations to be a lot of undercover fraud that actually was using Scalar technology that actually steals the energy from the people rather than adding to it or doing something along that line. So I'd like to address that for a few minutes later down the road, but a lot of this actually could be dealt with something. We're looking at salmoniac, which is a ammonium chloride, and you're very blessed over there. In fact, I'm so thankful to the people of, the Anglo nations, as people know, Ireland, and to people like Jackie Hale and other people. They've been in the Bryansford County there. They've been able to help. I've been spending actually probably about 3-4 hours this week with them, trying to assist also the people over there to get this kind of thing. This ties into the smart meter, and it's about people maybe being self-empowered. And just, for example, when I moved in here, they talked about mortgages. We don't accept mortgages. I don't accept taxes, driver's license, and I don't accept bills or acts of parliament or checks or anything along that line. When you get about the world economics, it's about being in truth and sharing things. And for an example, what I did is I spoke to the people because they were going to cut off the hydro here. And I spoke with them and told them what we were looking at doing. They didn't do any bills. Further, what I did is I sent it to the CEO and the companies of Hydro One, whether it's a, BC Hydro or wherever it is in your area. And I reminded them of that international treaty that as clan or tribal women, and especially as a clan mother, there are existing actually covenants/treaties that go back thousands of years and that they could not bill me. And in fact, the result, you know what it was, Alan? 30,000 smart meters last week are now going to be pulled out of the rural areas because of partially what we did.
Well,
so 30,000 smart meters are being removed.
Okay.
That's huge.
Well, talking about smart meters, because over here in Ireland, apparently 2018 is the year they're planning to roll out the smart meters over here. So I'm not too sure. I mean, I know in the States, in certain states in the States, they are pulling out the smart meters because not only because they're dangerous, but they're catching fire as well. P&G, I believe, are the people involved in that. But over here, typical Ireland, they're going to go ahead with the smart meters that you're trying to push forward with the smart meters, regardless of the information they have about the dangers of them and the actual privacy issues with the smart meters. So maybe there's something that we can use that you've done to send to the people over here to say, well, you're not putting smart meters over here.
Absolutely. And I think Dan's an expert in that, and so is Pattie in their own fields as well. But the smart meters people can look up actually on YouTube. And I spent quite a bit of time actually in the Kootenays when I was out there. And people literally were locking down and putting cages on them. And in fact, that was one of the first things I did here a couple weeks ago, is I put actually aluminum foil in and we're putting a mesh around it because these meters go out and they micropulse. And they have special little, it's almost like the woodpecker, tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
It's going at tens of thousands of oscillations that affect the brain waves. And so people were ending up, and, I actually have done the tinfoil hat thing myself. Don't laugh.
Okay.
But they told me to do it. I did it. They said, go and experiment yourself. So I was in a place where they had, unknown to me at the time, 4 smart meters in Nelson. What people think of, in the SNIAC territory, what people think is British Columbia. But we did that, and we wrapped in tinfoil, and not, just one wrap. It's not like it was a new hairdo or anything. But in 20 minutes, we could hear the pop, 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 like microwave popcorn. And I put it up to the window, and my gosh, Alan, and if you would have seen this, Dan, they were like someone had lasered me. You could see all these microscopic nano little holes, and I went, that's been drilling in my brain the whole time. And so there was a lot to be said for what you're doing, whether you're creating a mini little Faraday cage at the time, which is something you can use to protect. Now, one of the things about the smart meter is it's for an internal surveillance. It connects to everything, computers, everything that's got a smart meter chip. And this is where some of the dangers of what was coming in with the Keshe Foundation, and I've been texting with him and Carolina, and they wouldn't provide also these things. These mag-grav machines are not what they appeared to be. But then neither are the smart meters. Not only do they catch on fire, they're micropulsing things. So I spent actually quite a bit of time in the Kootenays, and also with Dr. Ross Anderson, who's one of the leading experts in it, and Barry Towers and stuff has some stuff I know on YouTube as well. But it's about standing up. And so a lot of people have got, we put papers up, like, a poster, and, as people think a notice. But anyway, I was able to do it from the proclamation. Now, I was also just by Saskatoon at the University of Saskatchewan, which tied into another multiple amount of what you call mini synchrotrons or CERNs, and now we got another one, Karen, Totem. I'm on Totem Road up here too, so, we know things are happening. These are miniature little CERN sites, so it affects everywhere. These connect things, and again, my concern is that, I don't have a concern because we're discerning, is that it's kind of like the disclosure of candidates. You don't want to bank, don't bank. You don't want the smart meter, then you go talk to the individual. And because of the stance that women can do, or men, but especially the women, in tribal law, which really supersedes common law, black law, maritime law, administrative laws, that kind of thing, the women actually have the ability to stand up and actually start contacting these people and really asserting and getting empowered and getting their rights back. So that's what I did that made a big difference. And we can't be mortgaged. We can't be taxed. None of that is applicable in this kind of education that people could go to called Meredith Quinn tribal law. So people just have to educate themselves. And that's where people become. So if that helps a little bit, that all changes one thing, because everything's interconnected. And Dan's, I'll turn some of this over to Dan. It's amazing, because just to let you know, there's so many things. The banking is going on, like you said, too. Yeah. And I just was in contact with Dr. Sean House as well. What's going on at CERN, the banking, the Templars, the Octagon. This is where the banking has to stop, but it's got to stop. And that ties into the women's DNA allegedly being sold off for colonizations and cloning stuff.
Well, we're going to get into that, exactly why these people are going missing, but let's say and pass it off to Dan. Dan, the question originally was just about the weather and on what you think is going on now. I know there's a lot of this, as Karen said, interrelated, because it's all linked in some kind of way. But let's start off. I do want to touch base with Karen regarding the MacGrav, because we have talked about that before. But what's your take on what's happening regarding the weather, and is there anything sinister going on there?
There is. And thank you for having me, us today. The aspect of why you're receiving storms over Ireland and the UK and Europe is there are several reasons. What we call the Star Wars actual, which is the Arcturians and the Pleiadians shooting back and forth with at the Anunnaki and the the Dracos, has become so fierce, it's becoming, Star Wars is actually becoming closer and closer to the planet Earth. And as a result, the military-industrial complex, the cabal, whatever you choose to call this, predatory, pathogenic, artificial intelligence, nonetheless, the need for cloud cover to keep you and all of humankind from seeing the Star Wars actual, when they can't hide these shots. They cannot hide some of the shots that are near misses to the Earth. And actually, the National UFO Center has many pictures of ships being destroyed as these weapon systems are striking down the enemy. And you see debris spreading out across the sky, and everyone says, oh, well, is that a group of unidentified flying objects? And the answer is, actually, it's one previous unidentified flying object in multiple pieces being completely annihilated by plasma. And so to keep the humankind from panicking, you will have artificial storms which give you cloud cover so that you cannot actually see eyeball to skyward. You cannot actually see Star Wars actual taking place.
Okay, so obviously the HAARP, would the HAARP be involved in this as well?
Actually, HAARP is getting blamed for it, but it's not as much HAARP as it is chemtrailing and cloud seeding.
Okay, well, it makes sense with all the clouds. I mean, cloud cover. I mean, that's an old one, but using cloud cover to hide what they're doing, that makes sense to me. It's just we have so many storms. Nearly every week we're hearing of a new storm coming about. And Alex Collier was on the show, and Alex did say, again, this is something that Alex said, whether it happens, it's another thing, but Alex did say that from March, basically he said things are going to get worse weather-wise. Now, I'd like to get your thoughts on the announcement that they found Planet 9, or they're calling it Planet 9, and what's the reason behind this, and is it Nibiru, or is it Planet X, or what? Why? What are they trying to tell us, Karen?
I was going to say, I heard Pattie Brassard's voice behind me going, "What do you mean 9 planets? We've got 360 some out there."
Okay.
I think that's a little bit of a. Well, I don't think it's a little bit of a stretch when you've been able to see something through the cameras that we've been able to, is that there's many different planets out there. And when we're talking about some of the things going out there, how would I say it? People are concerned about some of the different things. Let's say, when you were just talking about, I just want to talk a little for the weather for a sec too. Vancouver and the Star Wars and what's going on with Nelson, these earthquakes are not what they appear to be. As Dan said, there's been some documentation that we can hear, which is affecting, because some of these different Star Wars are these planetoids, and we've been able to see them coming through the Soul Gate, or as people think, the sun, and coming out literally shooting, and it's affecting everything, the gamma rays, the weather, all sorts of things. So it's not always what people assume it is. And Planet X or whatever, there's multiple planetoids from what we can see. These are the people that have the expertise that have been off the planet. That's not something I can talk to. And that's more where Dan comes in and their expertise in their area. But from what we can see, there's many different planetoids. And I know that there are some sitting on the outside of the sun gate, as you want to call it. We've been able to see, some are watching, some have been parked there for a couple of years, So things are actually heating up, and I've had the pleasure of being with Sergeant Daniel MacBolen and Pattie Brassard and watching what's going on. And both of them at different times will actually send me pictures of virtually the same Star Wars coming in. So from my perspective, it is actually happening. So the cloud cover and everything else, this is just so that you're not able to see a lot of what's going on. that we sometimes are able to, with the extra ability with Pattie, to get into all the different labs and stuff that Pattie set up through the computers in NASA. But even Dan, from his position in strategic areas, is able to pick up the same information. So I'm having two of them give me the same information at the same time, just to let people know as a witness to that.
Okay.
And so a lot of this cloud cover, you know, with the seeding, that's to cover these planets, and so people are not aware of it. But, you know, it's no different than we've got 4 extra elements, you know, gosh knows what's being dropped in the chemtrails. You know, it's like the, you know, X-Files this week.
Yes, I know. Well, again, you know, they're really exposing things on the X-Files, I have to say, the 4th series. Now, just going off to Dan regarding the 9th planet they found. I seen a video during the week, again, I don't know how true it is, but they're saying they're using light refraction technology to actually hide the likes of Planet X or Nibiru or any planets that are coming in. They're using that technology. Is that a possibility, Dan?
Yes, and it's very difficult for this fourth density type of holography because it's very complex. It's so dense. The light, laser light, coming together from multiple locations are so dense that you can actually, if you were flying a jet and you saw the image that they are projecting, you can literally get weapons tone on this because the light is so congruent that it actually reflects radar back to the weapon system and allows you to gain tone and fire a missile at it. And so it is very convincing, but if you watch it, you'll see glitches in the program. And I think what was being seen that they could not hide was the brown dwarf, which is it used to guard the Soul Gate, and it's about 4 times the size of Jupiter, so it's pretty obvious. And I think I have a sense that is what's being seen.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think about this Planet 9, the 9th planet, which they're saying? I mean, you know, because some people are thinking people are going to be seeing Nibiru or Planet X shortly. They're going to be seeing it, and they need to have an excuse. So they needed to come out in the news. They did last week. Sky TV came out and said, "Oh yeah, there's a 9th planet." So if we start seeing something, then go, "Oh yeah, that's the 9th planet." So this is some people's belief. Would that kind of ring true to yourself?
Yes, as Pattie had mentioned, there are over 300 objects that are larger than, ranging from the size of the moon to ranging to the size of 4 times the planet Jupiter. So we've got a lot of help coming in through the Soul Gate, the Sun, and the Stargate. They are coming in, and they are actually not allowing the Archon and the Draco vessels to come in. And the real difficulty is not so much the weather that you've been seeing is more chemtrails, but not HAARP. HAARP is really in danger when these craft come close to the Earth's atmosphere and the Archon Draco vessels shoot at the Arcturians and the Pleiadians who are trying to protect Earth. Sometimes they miss the vehicles that are protecting Earth, and the beam strike actually strikes the atmosphere of the Earth, causing tremendous disruption in the magnetosphere, the magnetopause, and the magnetosheath. And a lot of activity that we're seeing with the rise in X-ray, the flux index, and the solar index through SOHO, literally can be tracked back to this enemy firing at our non-terrestrial buddies that are helping us, missing them and striking the Earth and also striking the Sun, which causes coronal mass ejection because they try to cause a solar flare to come out and destroy the Pleiadian or the Arcturian. So it's a Star Wars actual that, and like I say, running HAARP and having HAARP up and running at full power when maybe one of these strikes happens to hit the atmosphere would be very bad for the antennas. It would feed back the electromagnetic force back through the antennas and really burn, the old style HAARP machines. They would burn them up. So, as far as HAARP being a part of the weather manipulation, I believe that I go in the opposite direction, and I go towards, because I've seen on Soho's LASCO C3 and C2 strikes directly at the sun, causing discharges, and at the Earth, resulting in the Soho reports, and what looks like is a solar flare is actually not a natural phenomenon. It's actually as a result of the Star Wars actual.
Okay, because there is a concern with solar flares, which may cause EMPs. Now, we know North Korea is saying they're testing missiles over there, and they're going against UN sanctions. Now, I didn't know that the North Koreans actually bothered about UN sanctions. I wasn't aware of that. I thought they did their own thing regardless. Do you know any information regarding the North Korean issue that's going on there, Karen?
At many public levels, they, being close and in close relationships with China, outwardly, publicly, they pretend to be enemies, but inwardly, on the inner circle, the hidden secret governments, they're actually working together. It's not just the G20, but they're all cooperating together for the agenda of the predatory pathogenic artificial intelligence. They're all working for the same entity. It's not an entity. It's not organic. It is strictly a pathogenic, predatory artificial intelligence with its agenda, and it needs human beings with a high metagene factor, the ability to manifest without, just by praying, meditating, and manifesting, bringing something into being out of nothing.
Okay, well that's interesting. Karen, what's your take? Have you looked into the North Korean issue?
I looked at actually just a little bit. I was actually talking to some of the different people. It's funny you would bring it up. I consider it more to be the Asian thing as opposed to segregating into the countries. Again, it's kind of like we have the 13 original nations, and when they got divided, that was called the United Nations, i.e. your countries. And so this, again, is like Dan and I have said, we're together in unity, community, or co-creation, as opposed to united, being divided off like in the United Nations. This, again, I've had some contact by different people that are with this Dragon Society and that Dragon Society and these hidden governments really with that, again, collective really agenda. And, I mean, even listening to something, I was listening to even the Red Dragon and supposedly this ambassador, and there's all this things with Neil Keegan and all this sort of stuff. I've been doing a lot of stuff with that. In fact, Ben Fulford and looking at some of this investigation. A lot of it is deception, and it's to take people away from what's really important, which is, as Dan said, it's the metagene factor and our ability to create and co-create. And when you get people like this, like North Korea doing this or whatever, it's very deceptive. This is really what the predatory pandemic or artificial intelligence is doing. It takes you away from being at peace and from being in love. And that's where we're really coming into. It's great to have all this awareness of what's going on with CERN and Karen and Totem and everything else and the magnetic sphere and stuff. But bottom line is that it's what can I do? Exactly. Do I really know what they're doing over there? No, because I'm not there, but I am aware of it. But what can I do about it? Exactly what I'm doing right now, standing up here and making what we can do, you know. And my thing is to have contact, because a lot of the stuff with the global reset and what they're doing with the weather, this is for depopulation, and that's not what it's about. It's about education and, you know, making sure that we can do things in a cohesive manner. And that really starts with education and really like being healthy and being alkalized and getting your colon cleaned. And that's the decolonization. Come off the system, you know, grow some food. I was looking at seeds and stuff. That's where the actual gift economy is. And we laughed earlier about, can you check? I said, no, I don't trust and I don't check, but we can share stuff. And that's the same thing with these people. I've heard these people speak directly, and anyone can go to these reports on YouTube, and they specifically say that they funded both sides or they're playing both sides, but now they feel that they've been screwed, and now they're starting to approach people like me, and they weren't aware of a lot of the repercussions,
Okay, well, funny you
how
should
it
say
affected
that.
everyone globally.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that about we do talk about being self-sufficient as much as you can. And during the week, I actually got myself and Steve a set of pH test strips from a company called Simplex Health.
Yeah.
And basically what the pH test strips are is that you pee on the strip, basically, and you match up the colour on the back, and it tells you whether your body is alkaline or acid. And obviously if it's acid, you want to be changing your diet. And if it's alkaline, well, keep it alkaline, because disease finds it very hard to grow or develop in an alkalized body. And that's the important thing. So, I just happened that actually we got them during the week, so I have to, when Steve popped in, I have to give him them. Okay, so everything that's going on.
May I share something?
Yeah, of course.
May I share something? This is actually just a very funny story. It's about pH. And of course, my background is natural health. I've been not only a nurse, but for 30 years, but I'm actually a quantum naturopath now. So oils to whatever. The first thing I do in all my clients is actually give them pH litmus paper, which anyone can get. And one thing is to urinate on it, but first thing in the AM, but the second thing is your saliva, and try and get them to match up into that dark blue purple over 7.4, because that is what should be normal, just to let you know. Almost every client I ever do is always in the acidic range, looking very yellow or green. Those colors, by the way, whether you were or not, they tie into the chakra colors. Okay. So that's why most people are in the acidic. They're stuck in the third dimension or in the colon. That's the decolonization. So that's why foods, oils, and the hertz, you would be in the lower hertz. That's in the 30, 40 hertz where all the diseases are in. Viruses, bacteria, candida is really, what they call cancer. It's a way of thinking. So if you use the baking soda to alkalize or do that, or enemas, that's in the Himalayan salts, that's what alkalizes you quickly. Yeah. And I just wanted to share a story because this is how important that pH is.
Yeah, well,
when I was dealing with one of the guys I met with,
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I met with one of the guys up here to do with the Keshe machine and all this stuff as I was investigating, and met with Suzanne Alexander, and Pattie and I spoke with her at length from Italy to here. And we discovered the fraud because there was like all these companies there, and there was nothing being done or manufacturing. There was no huge group, and monies were being taken and funneled through like the Swiss stuff we told, and people were exiting to Dubai where the Pope was collecting apparently his minions. And what happened is when I met with Bernard Langlois, he had one of these Keshe pens and, was telling me all these things. And they came with duct tape and cotton pads soaked in basically saline or Gans water. If someone was that healthy, which I can look at them as a clinical practitioner with the skill biofeedback, or to, do iridology or look at your tongue or traditional Chinese medicine, tribal or Vedic medicine, I can look at you within seconds. It's not just psionic or psychic, it's the ability to read someone on many levels, or the higher chakras. It shows up in your face, your tongue, whatever. I knew these people were ill, and if they'd really tapped into the fifth dimension, they'd be like just winging, like just really healthy. They'd be totally alkaline and stuff like that. And the fact that you bring up the pH paper is that they were not honest with me, and they told me that they measured their pH by some sort of a meter. And I said, well, I have a $20,000 scale that does your proton. I can tell what it is, but I said, how did you measure that? And he said, I'm between 5 and 15. And I looked at him right then. I said, you'd be dead at either level, so let's start again, because I'm a nurse. We're not doing arterial blood gases here. So I gave him the litmus paper. This is the truth test.
Okay.
Dan. I gave him the litmus paper because he wouldn't let us come up to see any of the machines or any of this stuff. And I was insulted. I know what a scalar pen is. I've been developing things for 20 years myself. He gave me the litmus paper. He was so acidic. He said, there you go, it's alkaline. He said, and that's exactly why the GANs and stuff is not functional. And the scalar pens actually were drawing energy. All of us felt worse being around them. And they didn't do anything for us. In fact, I was severely pulled when it did. Just to let you know, about 2 minutes later, and no, there's no such thing as an accident. The water, he spilt the water that I went to Wakefield, north of here, what they call in Quebec, north of Ottawa, to go get the spring water. When the water hit the rest of the litmus paper, it turned it nice dark green. So I knew that, I said, isn't that interesting that this water, we're primarily there, that the water is more alkaline than you are. So if you were really in some sort of a functional field, I knew that his, pH, it was the ultimate, if you want to say, lie detector test. It's a state of health.
Okay, well,
and so that alone there was interesting. I just wanted to share that story because it just happened last week.
No, that's okay. Let's talk about the MadGrav device, because we'll touch base on that, because we have talked about that on the show, and it came out with big fanfare, and they were €499 to buy. And a lot of people, I think people originally thought it was a free energy device, which it isn't. Basically, the whole idea was that you plug it into your existing supply, and you load up the MadGrav device, and then that connects to the meter. And so most of the energy is coming from the MadGrav. And I think the maximum you can get is about 2 kilowatts, 2,000 watts from the MadGrav device. But then Steve looked into the whole making of the actual coils, and he found out that it was actually how the coils were being done was carcinogenic.
Yeah.
So so that was kind of a red flag straight away, before even getting into the functionality of the MadGrav device.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that because I've been following him. In fact, it was a very strange thing. I'd been sort of made aware of it, about what Keshe was doing, through someone called Dr. Tony Minervino, who since has not been forward or upfront or honest with us either, and ended up leaving. But he was the one that was actually kind of fronting a little bit for the Keshe Foundation, and he was staying with actually Dr. Cornelius Van Dorp and his wife Anna Van Dorp, which were heavily involved in the Keshe supposedly medical end of it. And they were trying to basically recruit me on and off for 2 years, which is never going to happen. Anyway, that was my first awareness of Keshe. And then basically what happened, I looked at it too, because there are some different applications. Most of the GANs can be toxic. And I mean, I would see pictures here with people with fantastic and this and that. And it's a state of health. And virtually anyone that thought they had some sort of result with even the pens, it's when you have people that have got coffee and they drink coffee a pot a day and they're diabetic, supposedly one because of the acidity level, which is coffee, by the way, is minus 25 point on the Richter scale. When you switch to water, that might be 6. And again, people that alkalize their water, that's why we alkalize our water with baking soda and put it up 8 or 9 to compensate for what goes on, is that again is going to make a shift, in their pH or in their blood sugars even. Now, what happened is that, and Sergeant Daniel MacBolen was with me. He can verify this, as was Pattie Brassard. But we spoke with Suzanne Alexander because I've been watching this for a long time. And I was hoping to see what we could do. But the application, when you know about Trinity and you know about the triple spiral, which is why that cell manic may be very, helpful in some of the DNA repair to get the 2-strand back to 3-strand and then to 12. The applications didn't function. And in that alone, like talking to Suzanne, I'd given Keshe and those guys, by the way, the proclamation. So the fact that they couldn't produce one, and they couldn't produce one since before October, that was in violation of the law. We found out about the banking going into CERN, Switzerland. And Suzanne was amazing because she actually went right over there. She thought she'd just jump in there with both feet and go do that. And so her testimony is actually on Suzanne Alexander, actually, and I've been putting it out as well, and right onto the Keshe site, because those particular machines can be, as you said, harmful. You can use, and I'll have Dan really speak to this, this is part of this predatory pandemic. I just call it artificial intelligence, because it gets into the plasma. This GAN can affect different things like your emotional fields. And what happens here is that Suzanne was actually over there in Berletta, which is, as people know, Italy. And it wasn't what it appeared. So I actually was there for a week with her. talking with her many nights.
Okay.
And all of us were. When she got back over here, we found out there was not a functional machine there, and there was no production, and it was basically a front, and things were apparently going in and out. She can speak to that. I mean, I can't, but, she would tell me she met with someone in the police, and there were complaints, and there were, getting to be fraud charges, and all sorts of things. So, and I know from my point of view, I went, if you've got a field, it's like, when the police go over the scan or everything else we're looked at. I mean, they can tell if you're growing, like, cannabism in your place. They can tell sorts of things through the smart meters and what people are putting off. Or when I read SKIO, we're reading your signatures, your frequencies. The frequency, or with Pattie, I'd be able to see changes in the UK or the radiation levels. And that's what started this, is I wanted to see what the UK levels were, where you were, the radiation. And we couldn't find anything. So to me, that's a huge thing, which also tied us into what was going into the radiation counts over there, because they were extremely high where you are, and I just really want to encourage people to look up and do their own research. And if they really want to be lazy, then Pattie Brassard's albums, I've got it, and I've got it on mine too. So it's not what it appears, and this can be detrimental, which is why he wanted to get a pen into every soldier's. Their whole thing last week was to get a mag pen grab, which could be used as a transmitter, like a scalar transmitter, into every military soldier and enforcement agent. Which to me could be tapping into their thing and pulling away from their energy, that they won't be able to do anything. So I don't want that being done and harming these people.
No, that's interesting.
Dan could speak to that part.
Because a lot of people are actually going off and developing the plans and the technology and doing the coils. And it's just a big concern if it's carcinogenic for people working on it, at home. And it came out with a big fanfare, but now when you kind of look into and investigate it, it's quite interesting that it's not exactly what it's saying on the tin, as we'd say. But let's move on a bit from the mag grab. We might come back to that. I just want to go over to Dan, because one of the things that we talked about before we went live as well, and just so many subjects that we're going to kind of banter about, we'll throw about, and I'm sure there's a couple of questions on the chat room that we'll get over to you. People have to bear with me. It's just myself here. Steve's not with me, so I'm kind of multitasking as we speak and as the interview's gone happening at the moment. But just going over to Dan. Dan, we hear about these 10,000 people gone missing, and we've been in touch with other guests regarding this, and they all come to the same conclusion. Do you want to kind of give us a heads up on what you feel has happened to these people?
Well, due to the Star Wars actual, all these people, you've got the Arcturians, the Pleiadians fighting with advanced weapons, more advanced than the Archon Dracos and the Anunnaki. And so there's this big firefight going on, which is drawing the military-industrial complex. Their attention is spaceward because the shooting is getting out of control. They want to cover the planet with an envelope of artificial clouds to hide the fact that, they don't want people to have mass panic. And so they're policing up the parts of the spacecraft that fall from the sky. And so, but the biggest thing is since our sun is an illegal, according to the Universal Council, our sun gate, our soul gate, is an illegal, sort of like a back door for black marketeers, for pirates, non-terrestrial pirates, runners, what do you call it? I don't know what the term is in Ireland. For, basically they're interlopers that jump into the soul gate and basically pop into the earth and snag a bunch of human people for commercial reasons so that they can sell them somewhere else. And so this is this is one of two places where they can pop in, steal a bunch of people, take advantage of the present political situation and scamper off with our people and sell them commercially. And so it's sort of like a black market. It's a backdoor black market. And we have a lot of unknown non-terrestrials coming in doing this. And so my feeling is that not only is this taking place en masse, but also the military-industrial complex actually take human beings and run them into the intergalactic conglomerate corporation on the various, like Mars and like the moon base, and turn them into slave labor. And since they're refugees, who's going to miss 10,000 refugees? Well, we do, because what happened to these people? Well, they're either interlopers or it's the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex stealing these people and transporting them to the Mars base or to various other military locations in the secret space program, using them for slave labor.
Well, also, Don, we've actually heard as well for food. Now, for some people, they can probably comprehend the fact that we might not be at the top of the food chain. And we've talked about this subject before, and a couple of guests that we've had on have talked about this. And one of the books I would mention for people to buy is a book called The Only Planet of Choice, which I read in the 90s, and they talk about the agreement that they had between the American government and the ETs, saying that the American government would get the hardware and they would get the ETs would get the software, being human beings. But the ETs reneged on the actual treaty and the agreement, and they took more than what they should. Now, right. Obviously we've heard about these 10,000 immigrants or refugees, if you want to call them that, over in Europe gone missing. And the general consensus from a couple of other guests also of saying that they've been taken for slaves and food. Now that might blow people's minds, because, to comprehend that we are not at the top of the food chain is kind of mind-blowing in itself. But even if you entertain the thought of that, you don't have to believe it, but even if you entertain the thought of that possibly being the case, it really kind of puts in a different spin on things.
Right. Well, in order to avoid fear-mongering, when we deal with, let's say, Karen meeting with Paul Hellyer, the former politician from Canada, basically when they take human beings, not only is it DNA clone chimeric off-world, off-planet sales of the DNA itself, yes, you have a lot of live individuals they need for reproduction. Oh, yeah, right. Paul Hellyer was the Minister of Defense for Canada. And so we can't all just jump on the fear-mongering wagon and say, yes, we're primarily a food source. But the thing is a live human being taken for sale is a lot more valuable than a bunch of one individual in a bunch of petri dishes. And so the value of a live human being for, reproduction and hybridization programs is vital. So a lot of these people are not being purposely used for food, but they're being used as breeders and as incubators for the particular race who buys them, and they want them alive and healthy as they can be. And so a lot of reports that we get back have to do with a breeding program and them using live humans who are unharmed as well. They're not treated well, but they're sold off as breeding material, both male and female. And then you have those who do die before they actually reach the destination, are used as DNA chimeric type cloning, and the residual of what's left over from that human being, once you harvest the DNA for the chimeric cloning is later. It's nothing goes to waste. They do use it for food. So no, we're not on top of the food chain. Yes, people do get eaten, but not as often as you think. The feeding ground, the true feeding ground, is stealing your life force, stealing your energy, and keeping you blinded to the fact of how wonderfully and marvelously you were created, and that you are a co-creator, a manifester. That's what all these non-terrestrials want to get their hands on, is your manifestation gene, your metagene, your God gene, your metagene factor, because that is very powerful, much more powerful than non-terrestrials with their millions of years of manufacturing by trial and error, when a human being in less than 150 years in the industrial age can manifest something out of, pure nothing. And a third-stranded human being, the worth and the value is beyond measure. It's precious, because the human being who has reached the point of understanding enlightenment and stepping into the next level of thinking, which is what you would call the intention of causality and obeying universal law by being unconditionally loving and non-judgmental. That person can manifest a cure for the PPAI. We can literally manifest it to shut down, uninstall, delete, and then we take that black goo and we transmute it into pure energy, where it no longer is a dangerous, pathogenic, contagious infestation or an infection. And so that is the true value of human life, and why so many people have come from so far away to protect humankind, is because we are precious. We are a million times, as manifestors, more powerful than any non-terrestrial being in the universe. And all these non-terrestrials, they know it. The only people that have this information is being kept from is humankind themselves.
Yeah, I think the knowledge has been taken away purposely because we don't realize how powerful we are and what we can do. But one of the things that kind of, I listen to people saying, they say the bad ETs and the good ETs. I'm kind of skeptical on the whole good ET thing, because it's like the bully in the playground beating somebody up, and if they were anyway good, they'd be helping out. But what's happening on our planet at the moment, if it's got to do with human beings and clones and semi-reptilians and reptilians, then I mean, we talk about the Prime Directive and certain ET races or ET races shouldn't interfere. But it doesn't seem to be stopping the negative ETs, but the good ETs don't seem to want to get involved. So when I hear about the good ETs, I just call them kind of ETs, because if they're anyway good, they'd actually be helping out and getting involved.
Well, they are in the Star Wars actual off-planet. But when we began to look at the larger picture, everyone has the agenda. Now, the agenda, the reason that the Arcturians and the Pleiadians have come to our rescue is because as manifestors, we're able to get rid, we are the cure for the predatory pathogenic artificial intelligence. We have the ability to completely transmute it and destroy it. And that is very precious to them. And so, yes, do I trust the good versus the bad? I don't trust any of them, because, as Karen said, if we go back to noble savage tribal law, we don't trust is a part of an agreement, some type of contract. And so, no, I don't trust them all, but I am very grateful for their help, because when they get done helping us and they free us from the Draco Archon slavery, then, of course, being service to others oriented, I believe it's humankind's responsibility, because they have protected us and lost lives and done all these things to help us. It is only service to others orient that we turn around and we manifest a transmutation of the infestation and the infections that they have been suffering from with the PPAI. And so everyone has their agenda, including those of the manifestors within humankind. Our job is to protect humankind, heal them, wake them up, and return the planet to its pristine condition. That is our mission statement. Protect the light workers, wake up humankind, restore Mother Earth.
Which is, I think it's fair enough. I mean, we can only do what we can do. So, service to others, good energy, keep negative people away from you, and try and help as much as you can, and wake people up as much as you can. I think that's probably, the rule of thumb. There's only certain things that we can all do depending on what we're involved in. So we do as much as we can to make the change. Karen, just going over to you, obviously the powers to be, or powers that war, depending on your perception of what's going on, they have released a new pathogen, a new virus. Ebola seems to be gone by the wayside, and we have this new virus that's out there. I mean, are they really on the ropes? Are they really being pushed into a corner, and this is out of desperation that they're doing this?
Yeah, this is actually, again, I go back like probably about 8 or 10 years. I remember being with Dr. Len Horowitz, and at that time we knew Ebola was being kind of pre-planned. So it was a matter of, what was true then or true now is always truth. And that's about health and using stuff like essential oils. So the new little one that they've been pushing in Gates, and I mean, there's been all the stuff about the Zika virus and all this, and now people tracing it to Rockefeller, and they're selling it for 500 and some. We see that again. It's the last of the barrel, and a lot of these things. Dr. Sean House did some amazing stuff. If you're not aware of him, he's done a lot of stuff and broke down actually what the sigils are, the Z, like the key to the spirit, and to the Ba, like stealing the dead, like the Merkaba and stuff. He did some amazing stuff. So if people want to go to YouTube, is Sean House is HROSS. This is huge. I mean, this is, again, contaminants in there. They're like shipping devices. It's the aerosol. There is this. It turns you into an artificial, it's a chemical lobotomy. And it is the bottom of the barrel, whether it was H1N1 or H1.5 or whatever. I mean, from a nursing perspective, all of it is against the law. It's all with an agenda, all genocidal. But we need to, again, be aware that, essential oils, and it's almost like my home here. This is what was going on too, is what people think is their home. My home here? No, it's a mother's land. It's an inheritance land. It's not the homeland. It's the mother's land. And this is where people have to learn the differences in the terminology.
Okay.
My homeland? No, it's my mother's land. And so you have to protect that, and that's for the women to start really stepping up. Same thing whether it's vaccines, and start going back to what we call, tribal, or as people think, natural substances, because any of those things can be transmuted. I've looked after people and clients myself and used essential oils and the skill biofeedback to eradicate that. I do want to point out, in the last week, I've looked after 4 clients that have all been losing their hair, eyelashes, and it's not just alopecia, but eyelashes, eyebrows, and stuff. This has to do with that black sentient goo that got into the water systems, the fracking, and it is part of the agenda. So it is and has to be looked after, and like you said, that's what we act. And I just want to really, again, kind of part of this ties into this whole CERN and Totem and Karen and LHC and all the synchrotrons that are everywhere, even where you are. And I really like, Dan can address that. That's what's happening. So the virus is the last kick at the whatever. But again, if they've been derived or been here and been from the pharaohs and pharaonics and the Egyptian and this has been pre-planned a long time, but just like that, essential oils will also dissipate and transmute a lot of this too. It's crazy, so that it can't do anything,
Okay, no
So
problem.
that's yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to, Pattie's actually online, and I'm trying to bring Pattie in, but for some reason I can't bring her in. Skype keeps bombing her out. I don't know whether you can bring her in from, or maybe Dan. Dan has a probably a better bandwidth there, Karen. Dan, if you can bring Pattie in on the call there, and we'll be able to get Pattie on board.
Okay, I'm
hang
attempting that as we speak.
Oh, excellent, okay.
Pattie, are you there?
Okay, we'll just try and get...
It's still attempting.
It's just calling. For some reason there with Skype, it wasn't actually allowing me to add Pattie in as a third call. I don't know whether something else funny is going on. Pattie, are you there?
Pattie. Hey, Pattie. Pattie's
It's acting really strange. I had already picked up the call and it was still ringing.
Yeah, there's something really strange going on, Pattie. It wouldn't allow me to add you to the group call for some reason. It kept on throwing you out there. Good evening, and thanks for coming on board. Before we get talking to you, how's your brother?
He's all right. I don't even want to get into it, really.
Okay, well, I just thought he's okay. Yeah, so that's
right.
That's the main thing. Okay, Pattie, we've just been talking to Karen about this new virus that they've released, and I was just saying whether it's the powers to be or powers that war. Is this the last attempt of desperation to try and have their master plan put in place to affect the global population, or is there something more sinister to it? Have you looked into this virus at all?
Which one?
The Zika virus?
Oh, that. Is bioengineered. The whole thing is to give you a sickness to get you to come in and get an injection from them. The genetic material they want to put into you can't be delivered by Monsanto. So they have to give it via a shot. Now, the mosquitoes that are propagating this disease were custom designed by Monsanto and Billy Gates. Okay.
Well, and of course, they kind of devastated India, I believe, with all the vaccines. A lot of people having major medical conditions and effects after being vaccinated.
Right. Well, they had to Monsanto Gates had to bioengineer a mosquito that could carry this without dying.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So basically, this is a whole program that's being run by the CDC. They're not out there trying to cure people. They're actually starting it.
And they're trying to roll out the vaccines. Somebody mentioned in the chat room there that they're trying to bring out, they mentioned about Gardasil for boys and not just for girls. Now, I don't know whether, I haven't seen any information on that, so I'm just reading out what I'm reading on the chat room there. But again, the whole promotion and the push to get people to have vaccines.
The thing is, I mean, they supposedly have this birth control for males now, but you got to understand what it does. It's not a temporary thing like birth control pills for females. It's permanent.
Okay.
That it removes the DAS 1, 2, 3, and 4 from your genetic code, and then you can't reproduce.
Okay, well, that's one way to stop the global population, or to stop it from growing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Now, one of the subjects that we have to talk about, and I know Dan wants to talk about, is what's happening with CERN. That's the biggie. I know you guys are looking at it, and you're doing your bit to try and stop them pairing up and having their way with it.
Well, so they burned up the little one, so they're raping parts of the little one that didn't burn up to finish off the complete bypass of the original small one.
Okay. Well, I'll get Dan in on this, and Dan, and between Dan and Karen and yourself, Pattie, you can talk about CERN. So, Dan, do you want to kick off with your information you have regarding CERN?
Yes, I'll make it short and sweet. Basically, what we have discovered, Pattie has brought to our attention, is that Fermilabs, which has, in cooperation with Brookhaven on Long Island. They basically have a series of programs, RHIC, STAR, Phoenix, the list goes on, Project X, RHIC. There's just a ton of these, of which we have discovered a U.S. CERN connection of all these synchrotrons, which are now connected, and they're doing tests as we speak to get the United States synchrotrons, which I believe she sent you a picture, connected with CERN. Then through Seattle, what they're going to do is connect to Asia, which has their own, what you'd call Pacific network on the global string of things. And then they're going to connect with New Zealand, and they go through the New Zealand, which is called, they've named the whole program Karen, all capital letters, REANZ, REANNZ. And so what they are doing is basically it's a flaunting of the clan mother, because, you know, that's really way too coincidental for Karen and Luke MacDonald, who is a clan mother, and then, of course, deposing the Queen of England. And then now they have this program called Karen REANZ. You know, it's just too much coincidence, which I do not believe in. But basically, what they're doing is they're tying the New Zealand International Dateline area of synchrotrons with their connectivity to the Asian Pacific network, then through a link running from New Zealand through Asia into Seattle, connecting it to the United States and CERN network, so that they can literally turn around and put in one signal, put it through a four-way amplifier, and the one signal can run 4 different synchrotrons, which, again, each synchrotron has 4 more signals that it can, and so it uses this network of almost like a cellular, or like a terrorist cell. They communicate, and they want to open up a macrosingularity, allow the Dracos to escape Mimos, the satellite and last stronghold of the Dracos, and bring them onto the planet, so that it's not just using humankind as a human shield from space, because that's not working. They're shooting at the Arcturians and the Pleiades and missing them and hitting the planet. Well, that's not doing it. It's not harming human beings in a very drastic way. So what they want to do is compile 300 plus on-world, off-world synchrotrons, open up a huge macrosingularity, a big wormhole, and bring in reinforcements from Mimas and get embedded with human beings so closely that the Arcturians and the Pleiadians cannot shoot them without hitting us. So that's what their desire is with this whole global synchrotron network, is to bring the Archon Dracos right here so closely to humankind that the Arcturians and Pleiadians will not risk killing humankind to get rid of the Archon Dracos. So they're trying to usurp Karen's authority as a noble, savage tribal leader. I mean, I really respect what she is doing. I don't think I would be able to handle that kind of, but she is the bloodline, and she took this responsibility upon herself. But as manifestors, as light soldiers and light workers, we can help her to manifest a whole new planet. We can restore this planet to a pristine condition. We can do away with fear-mongering immediately. But the thing is they want, the PPAI wants to kick Karen back off the throne since she usurped it and took it by treaty, deposing the Queen of England and sending her packing.
Okay.
Well, she didn't take it by treaty. That treaty ended in September 2013, and the Queen was already in default of every tenet of that treaty that was signed in 640 BC anyway.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you. Yes, what Patty said.
The other issue is
clarified.
Brookhaven is the one that's been doing the time stepping. In other words, Brookhaven is already set up to the point, it's already doing the very high-powered stuff. The problem with Brookhaven is it's not as big. It has multiple loops so that it can run around a couple of times to make up for not being the big 20-mile round disk underground. It's much smaller, but it has to make multiple revolutions. But they've already run Brookhaven at those high-energy outputs and got the response they want. But it's not big enough to form a portal.
And what's the situation with the Queen Mother, or the Queen, because, I won't say Queen Mother's dead, but the Queen, because
the Dracos and the Queen Mother already jumped, we already figured out, I had her picture, who the Dracos that was in the Queen Mother jumped to before giving up the body.
Well, the Queen, apparently, the real Queen, apparently, originally, we spoke about this before, went to Dulce, but now she's dead, and who's in place is a clone. This is what we heard. Is that true, or...?
The Queen Mother died, not Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you'll notice, Queen Elizabeth has already taken a new protege, and that is who the Queen Mother's Dracos jumped into.
Right, okay. Well, I don't watch the news, so I'm not keeping tabs on what the royal family are doing on a day-to-day basis, so I don't know who that is. But I'm glad we talked about what Dan mentioned about fear porn, because, and I'm glad the three of you are on, because it is important that we have heard an awful lot of predictions and people talking about, the super Shemitah, the 4 blood red moons, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and nothing seems to happen.
I'm going to make one blanket statement.
Yeah.
Everything that was foretold to go down during this period of time has been canceled.
Why?
Because of all this issue with the interference with the development of this class.
Right. So when you say everything...
We've had groups from the future come back trying to shut this whole mess down, because if the timeline that the current group in power ever went through, it develops into a massive nightmare, and the Milky Way ends up slamming into Andromeda, and the Milky Way gets wiped.
Right. So what timeline are we on now?
This is the primary timeline. Everything else is reconverging.
Right. So
on this timeline.
So what's happening with the New World Order and, globally? I mean, is the timeline now a positive timeline? And are things going to change, or is it a negative timeline?
This is a positive timeline. Like, for instance, the Gulf, which they've made into basically a giant methane oxygen bomb, the same thing with California. They're trying to push this timeline now into what they wanted. That's why that methane hasn't blown up. Normally you just mix methane with get the right mix of methane with oxygen, and it blows up all by itself. You don't even need a spark.
Okay.
Which means we're winning.
It's called a monopropellant. And that's what I mean. Neither one of those have blown up.
Okay, so
which is mind-boggling.
Okay, so who's helping out? Who's stopping that from happening?
It's going to be a combination of all the light workers plus the Council of 12.
Right, okay. So, because obviously people have been running the radio show, we get people on, and we hear loads of predictions of people talking about things. Now, the things that are kind of close to people and who will affect people really from a day-to-day point of view is the banking collapse and this financial reset. Do you know what's happening with that, Pattie?
Yeah, they're getting desperate. And they now have a schism in the ranks, so to speak. Russia and China and Iran and as group with Peru and a bunch of others, they're going separate. That group is like straddling the fence. They're still trying to work their agenda while giving lip service to the orders that have come down from the council.
Right. So
they're straddling the fence.
Okay, so the council have told them to sort themselves out, and they're ignoring.
No World War III, no nuclear. They had the solid 50 ray go and remove all the fissionables from the nuclear warhead. So if you're worried about a nuclear World War III, it ain't happening. It can't happen. There are no more missiles or bombs or anything with any fissionable content. The only ones that got away with that are running those few underground programs, and those are test blasts.
Okay, so what do you think we're going to be seeing now in the next few months? Because obviously we're seeing an awful lot of disclosure, especially with the X-Files coming out, the fourth series. I mean, they put everything on the plate in that fourth series of what's going on. So there must be some kind of soft disclosure going on. So is it a case that it powers that war?
Another thing I find interesting is 4 observatories now have come forward and actually did a count of all those extra exoplanets up there and released it to the public. And I don't know whether the public's not taking them seriously, just not listening, or what, because I expected there to be a major furore over the release of the fact that there's 397 extra exoplanets up there.
Yeah, they didn't seem to be.
It was like a drop in a pond that didn't even make a ripple.
No, it didn't. But, I mean, they did have this release. We talked to Karen and Dan earlier about this Planet 9 that they found. Because everybody's seen the second sun and Nibiru, so is this
It's all nonsense. And what they're seeing isn't Nibiru, because I know where Nibiru is parked. And Nibiru has come by once in 2013. They came once by us again on December 17th of 2015. We got pictures of it. But again, when those things are traveling under drive, okay, they're driving around, the drive system does not let them interact with any other body around them. So the whole thing of it causing a major issue on Earth isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen. Even our second son, Gaia, actually had to come out and drive it around to heat up Earth, to create the lava that she intends. If they run for the dumps, she's going to wipe them out by flooding the dumps. And I've got pictures of our second son, our brown dwarf, out driving around because it doesn't shine, it doesn't light up. It's just a microwave sauce, so it creates a lot of heat.
Okay, so what about the likes of the financial system? I mean, is this going to collapse? Do you think, by the information you have, that this system's going to collapse because it has to, because it's a massive Ponzi scheme? This is
the neat thing that the Russian-China group are doing. They're deliberately, because, I mean, the group is trying to get everybody to go over to dollar first so that when they crash it, they can crash it globally.
Okay.
And so now you have this other group that's gone and switched over to the Chinese yen. Matter of fact, they attacked Peru 2 days after Peru said, no, we are not going with the dollar, and they switched to the yen.
I heard about that in the news, all right, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was retribution action using, Scalar technology.
All right. So are their backs against the wall at the moment? Are they desperate, trying to...
Yeah.
Okay.
A bunch of people are getting caught doing stuff and being dragged on the carpet.
Right. Is anybody being taken out? Anybody in high levels being taken out? Like if we cut off the head of the snake, then they...
Funny you should ask. Some of this is making it to the news, but not all of it. We have some major high-level bankers, the head honchos, that are turning up dead.
Right, okay. We've seen a lot of bankers being suicided or accidents happening over the last year.
Mm-hmm.
So...
right.
All right, Dan, do you want to jump in there?
Now, the World Court is also taking Monsanto on the carpet.
Yeah.
For crimes against humanity and, basically treason against Homo sapiens.
I will say, I want to bring Karen in here as well, but I will say, I am seeing, all the kind of, it's very easy to focus on the negative, but I am seeing a lot of positive stuff happening with this soft disclosure about the likes of Monsanto and things like that. So there are a lot of green shoots out there happening, and a lot of things are beginning to come to light, which is brilliant. Karen, do you want to kind of tell us what you've come across that's a positive?
Oh, I think there's so many exciting things going on right now. I mean, just like I said, even that letter going out with the 30,000 smart meters leaving, the incredible plans Pattie's assisted and drafted basically for, it's called Cypress Hills of Canada, but what are the solutions? I mean, incredible eco facilities that people could actually thrive in, based on some of the information that Pattie's been able to put together. And I mean, that's some of the things that people can start putting together very easily, and start doing indoor gardening. And people are coming more into awareness. There's that thing that people want to do, that innate thing to thrive. And I don't call it survival, I call it thrival. So what can we do? You know, it's no different than coming here and establishing the, you know, like I said, a sacred kin domain. And that's like taking, you know, control back. You know, it's reestablishing the rights, and especially, you know, in that sacred space here, whether you call it an embassy or whatever. But the thing is making sure it's safe and secure. You know, making sure that the smart meters go, the viruses, the bacteria, the cleansing inside and out. There's so many beautiful things coming out. And I mean, the soft disclosure, yes, we're all part of that soft disclosure. You know, disclosure of Canada, the CERN, whatever it is
Beautiful.
these days. You know,
good news.
It is. It's absolutely the sound. Yeah, the oils I've been able to do, and the skio biofeedback I've been able to do with people, and seeing them change their lives, and doing something as simple as we said, like the little lie detector test to me is like the pH test. Get some litmus paper. You know, I talk about that an awful lot. And we realize things are being targeted, and we realize these things are being put up, and it's been very interesting. We just did an excellent interview for several hours with Alfred Lamina Weber, which is yet to be posted. But the one that we did for Healing Circle Network on YouTube with Robin McClellan, literally, there's on both of them, 15 minutes have been banned, erased, or edited out by someone from the inside. We don't know where it went. And it had to do with some of the things that we were talking about. And we know we're being throttled down, but we appreciate getting things out. It's allowing us to see where we need to strengthen up things. And we sure could use all the help. In fact, I can put that out there. I have no problem in receiving all the assistance, you know, of friends and stuff that we can get. And it's very easy to get a hold of us at clanmother13@gmail.com. And we're very thankful because Peter Mullen Collins went on and he laid the road and laid the foundation for us getting here and establishing that. So we're very grateful to him. He happens to be sitting here listening. So, I mean,
yes,
a round of applause
Peter.
for that. We really did. But
Excellent.
It's funny. I mean, they tried to waylay me so I couldn't talk on the show today. The meeting I set up with that Karen and I had set up with the ambassador to the Red Dragon, who has the funding, has been postponed twice now. It's like right before I'm supposed to have that talk with him, they pull some sort of event that gets the ambassador pulled away.
Why? What funding is this, Pattie?
To build the habitats that I designed.
Right. Okay. Habitats where? Here? On
around the globe. This is the sort of thing that we need to be making to go back to 100% green, inclusive, and shield from the mess that they've made while we clean things up.
Is this
These are real-time solutions.
Okay. Is this got to do with the collateral accounts?
No, this has to the funding.
Yeah, you know Neil
has to do
Keenan.
with that all those bonds and everything that they took back.
Okay, Dan, do you want to come in there and tell us any positives that you've come across?
Are you referring to me?
Yeah.
Basically, what is happening is the cabal, the military-industrial complex, the PPAI, is really trying to misdirect us with fear-mongering, and it's just not working. People are not afraid anymore because the manifestors are pulling the teeth out of the junkyard dog. And the PPAI is losing its bite, so it increases its bark. But the problem is, it's not going to work. Humankind are waking up moment by moment. The more information we release, the more manifestors who come on board, and they're changing this construct, this world, in such a powerful way that things are not happening along the fear-mongering concept because we simply don't choose it to happen. And people say, oh, well, you're right, that's a really easy cop-out. But once you understand how manifestation works and how powerful even these people that are having these doubts, when they begin to take the Salamat, when they begin to increase their pH balance by changing their diet and beginning to heal their bodies and get their third strand back, and they begin to manifest, they realize how powerful they are, then there is no fear. There cannot be any fear.
That's why you got to be mindful of all the new red herrings that they're throwing out there, like the flat earthers and all of that.
Right.
It's all divide and distract.
Okay, and I know there's a few, obviously, topics out there that people have talked about. I'm just kind of, it's trying to get to the truth. As John Irwin said, who's a guest on our show, he's been on a couple of times, he said, when you bury the truth in a barrel full of lies, it's very hard to find it. And there's so much going on, so many distractions, so much disinfo. It's trying to find, the truth in what's out there, and sometimes you think you have it, and all of a sudden you find out, oh no, that's not, that's something else, that's disinfo, and then you're off again. And it's just trying to find what resonates, what you feel is right. Now, I think, as we said earlier, I think it's service to others, help each other, stay positive, stay healthy. All that stuff is the stuff that we can do from a physical, day-to-day point of view. And then anything outside that, well, just take it with a pinch of salt. Entertain it, but you don't have to believe it.
Did they talk to you about the scalar issues with the Keshe stuff?
Yeah, we talked about the Maggrav device earlier on. If you want to throw in a comment on that, Pattie.
You got to understand those everything's triple, three-prong attack, three-prong reasoning behind everything they do. The Keshe pens and things like that they want everybody to make and give to the military. You got to understand only level 5 energy can charge them up, so only level 5 capable people can actually make them that actually work. But that's sucking energy out of them through their uplink. The problem with those pens is, do they heal? Yeah. I mean, do they work? Yeah. If somebody who's got the healing energy and charges the pen up and gives it away, will it work? Yes. But the really dangerous part of it is it's also a scalar wave mind control receiver.
Okay. That's
so it actually amplifies the PPAI's agenda.
That's why they want all the military people to have them, because they can override their brain and allow them to shoot people they wouldn't normally shoot.
And now, obviously, if you look at the technology from an electronics point of view, a coil is an amplifier anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's an amplifier receiver. Now, the Keshe project, all the people they brought into the lab there to make the pens, they were basically, that was a program to find level 5 people who could build those working things, because they wanted people that can walk through the force field that's guarding the control booths in the Bugatti Mountains and the other 3 control rooms. Oh. They've got a shield across them that only level 5 density and energy level folks can actually walk through.
Hmm.
So that's the third prong of it. They needed some kind of a program to find these people.
Okay, so for people to be aware of, not to be making these coils that they're all promoting on the internet and showing people how to do it. Plus the fact that it's carcinogenic, which Steve kind of looked into and found out about. We have a couple of questions in from the chat room. Right. Unfortunately, I've been ducking and diving in between chat rooms because it's only myself here. But I'll open this question up to the 3 of you, and then you can answer. The first question is, the Book of Revelations in chapter 12 describes war breaking out in heaven. Are the governments of the world aware of this war?
Yeah, it's been going on since 1997, to my distinct knowledge. that I've got, photographic evidence of.
So it's since
97.
97, okay. Dan and Karen, do you want to add to that, or anything to add to that?
Ladies first.
Oh, Dan, I get to say this. Dan, how about you? Over to Dan.
Well, thank you. If you do look in Revelation 12, verse 12, you will see where the declaration is made, "Rejoice, O you heavens, and all you who dwell in them." And then it goes on with the message. And the key is that things are not, that humankind destiny is not set in stone, because humankind are, they have the ability to manifest when they coalesce their third strand, but they also are free moral agents, and they can change their mind at any time. So, the future is not set. The future is what we wish it to be, what we manifest it to be. And so therefore, Alice can use, the CERN Alice can use time travel all it wants. The PPAI is never really going to get a pure picture of the decision making, all of the, the flow chart of what any individual will choose at any given time, because we are human. We can change our minds at any given time. And if I ask the ladies, it's like, it's a woman's prerogative to change her mind at any moment and any time based on the present situation. And I'll turn it over to Karen.
How does one follow up with that? Like, where to start? Thanks, Dan. And
can I address what he said real quick?
Please.
In 2012, when the Looking Glass program went down, it was running at 24%, and just before it went down, the timeline they were trying to push for dropped to 17%, and it's been dropping ever since. Now, you got to understand, these folks are all hybridized Dracos. They don't care what they have to do. They have an agenda, and they will do whatever they feel they need to do to push that agenda, whether it's going to work or not.
Okay.
That's the mentality we're working with.
Okay.
And it's reflected in the fact that they do stupid things and shoot themselves in the foot so many times. And we, as manifestors, sit back and go, well, what they just did is they helped us tremendously, and we're not aware of it because of their ego.
Yeah, well, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot more mistakes being made, blatant mistakes. They seem to be tripping up over themselves all the time. And now when a false flag happens, I'm not saying people don't get killed, but the false flag in the understanding that they're doing it to get a reaction from the people, problem, reaction, solution. People are seeing it more. As soon as it happens, we're seeing the mistakes, we're seeing the errors that they're making. And I don't know, is that because of incompetence or because they are struggling to try and get their plans in place?
Well, you got to understand that event out in California and the one in France, the people that died were the people who would be directly opposed to their agenda. In other words, that those bodies they found in the theater thing there in France, they were all rounded up more than 4 hours prior to that event going down and killed.
Okay.
That whole scene was staged.
Right, okay. No, because I know, like, from a family member said he had a friend that was killed in that, in that group. But obviously, as you say, maybe they were rounded up before then. I'll have a question for you, for the three of you here.
It's not even a question. They had all the Americans over there, their crisis management team, strike team, from New York, and they have no explanation to why that whole group was over there. Okay, well, that's interesting. That is interesting. We'll add to this, because it's a good question to near enough. We've about 5 or 10 minutes left, but this is a good question for the three of you.
And Joan wants to know, does your speakers recommend safeguards that we, the people, should put in place to protect ourselves? I'll start off with Pattie.
The only one I talk to is Guy. But the whole thing is you got to get away from cell phone networks and this wireless stuff. Go wired. Go get a new router if you have to, and Cat5 cable. These signals are blocking Gaia from talking to you. And she is the only one with the data to put your DNA back together due to the amount of damages and extra stuff that's been inserted. We have hard documented evidence of what she is doing, including the actual code blocks that she's putting into people that she can talk with to fix their DNA. It's mitochondrial DNA coding, 10 code, which is what we originally had and all the primates still have. Most humans, when the Dracos edited out the third strand, it dropped to 9 code. But this is mitochondrial 10 code, not currently in existence in the entire human genome, okay?
Yeah.
That she's putting into everybody, male and female alike, in their mainstream DNA to do corrective work.
And this is going on regardless.
That is why they changed the frequency on cell phones and wireless networks, is to try and drown this signal from Gaia out.
Okay, that's interesting. Karen, what would you say that people should do to protect themselves?
I think for myself, what I've done, and maybe that's really sharing what's been effective for me, is one is getting the education, but two is looking after yourself. I being alkalized, using everything I've got around me, being off the grid, getting your mind free. If it's something I've investigated now, like salmonid, then that's going to be something. Alluding to your previous question too, I'll bring them all together in one here. When you talk about a war in the heavens and angels and wars and dragons and all sorts of things going on, that can be also a war for your mind, but it actually could be a virus or a bacteria, or whether we call it artificial intelligence, call it ego, call it getting back into peace or in neutrality. Some people say homeostasis, but it's getting your immune system back, which could be also your auric field, is to start having that reverence for the divine feminine or the divine mother. And as Pattie said, people have also disconnected themselves. Everything is all within us, and it's becoming that divine perfected being. And I think we need to do that and get back into balance, divine feminine but divine masculine. And so on that, it is about being who you can be and knowing that everything, I consider it like being a virgin again, is that it's virgin water. It's going to find the living water, getting that spring water, making sure what's inside is out and outside is in, and cleaning and cleaning and cleaning, whether you call it the great soul journey or the migration or the purification or the end of the world. Well, that's the end of the war. We're just going into a new age, new age of Aquarius, but it's all ages. It's everything. Truth is eternal. And why would we not be celebrating this? This is, not a matter of, evil, Satan, or shades of gray or whatever. This is different levels of frequency, and this is about each individual raising their vibration, raising their frequency, so that these things do not affect you. If you get, you can certainly add in. I love when we add in and share. How's that?
Okay.
We have everybody talking about ascension as if humanity as a species is going somewhere. That is wrong. We're not going anywhere. This is a change of energy state. One of the side effects of this change of energy state is everybody gets taller, your body gets more denser, and what it's meant to be, going to the 5th level energy state, is what makes you able to travel in space without worrying about radiation damage to your body.
Okay, and over to Dan.
And until that happens, you can't graduate. Graduation means you, as a species, can move out into space.
Okay. Okay, we have to graduate. Okay, just to put that question to Dan about safeguards that people can use.
I personally use the 7 steps of effective prayer, which is basically, this is something that all people can do because you're going directly to the ultimate creator, which by definition, you're bypassing a lot of manufactured religious rubbish. And so there's a website called the letter U, the letter R, light.org, in which the former commissioner of the Atomic Energy Commission saw in the 60s what was coming and decided to go the spiritual route in dealing with nuclear energy. And so he established the Light Center in Black Mountain, North Carolina. Now, you go to their website, you look for the 7 steps of effective prayer, and basically that's, I have a modified version of that, but I'm connecting directly to Source and directly to Mother Earth, and picking up the 10 code from below, and I'm picking up, the ultimate creator is within me doing the manifestation, and the only participation that I take part in and joy in is I'm there when it happens. So it's very heavenly. There's no fear. Beautiful.
I want to throw a mirror up in front of that just so people can see what's going on. That exact thing is what the Pope just recently publicly came out and said, no, you mustn't do it. It's dangerous.
Okay, so we have to be careful with the Vatican. Anyway, okay, finger in the air time, right? What about if you had to talk about a timeline on positive changes? What timeline would you say? Would you say 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 6 months?
By the end of 2017, it's going to whatever's is going to be is going to be. That's the end of September, as I understand it. September 2017 is the end of the game.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, Karen.
I've heard along the same thing. I'm not getting into dates and stuff, but what do I feel now? I'm living in the now.
Yesterday.
You know what? It's not yesterday. It's not 2017. It's right now. And if you are actually in alignment, okay, and being present, the gift is now. And that's the whole idea of time or timelessness too, or eternal. And that if you put everything congruently back into what it is and get into the point, and that's like the idea of going Solarian, Breatharian, whatever we want to say. But that's almost being here, but not being here. I mean, really, it's the idea that, supposed to be, there were certain people as a graduation class supposed to be here. Right now, we've got a whole bunch of stuff that shouldn't be here. We will straighten that out. But it's really, what are you doing right now? And people need to get themselves prepared. And if you're living in the now, then everything's beautiful, wonderful, and it's just a matter of how you perceive things too. And that's the mirror. Well, mirror means peace. You use it to that in our language too. And so be the mirror, be that, be the individual, and be as healthy as you can, whether it's yoga, whatever. But
there's only one real threat out there that I can substantiate in any way. The Draco, the Anunnaki Zetas made a hybrid race. That's who's camped out at South Pole. They adopted the Nazis. Now, and this is coming back through the Red Dragon, so even this I got to take with a grain of salt, is that if by 2017 humanity as a species does not stand up on their own, toss off the governments that they do not need, and get right with themselves, that the group that is camped out in the South Pole is going to throw in with the New World Order group and come up and take over.
So it's down to the people.
It's up to us to stand up and say we can do without governments and work on our own.
Now.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree. And, we're having major issues in Ireland at the moment. We're having an election, and the blatant corruption and white-collar crime that's going on that people can see is right in our face. And yet there's still people voting for these parties when they don't really understand that the system is all rigged. And it's amazing. And, we're getting people knocking on the door, the politicians wanting a vote. And again, part of the process, what we try and do is try and educate as much as we can. But I'll ask, let's go back over to Dan. I just want to get Dan to get his take on the safety side of things. We didn't get Dan to finish his question there. Dan.
I back up and I agree with Karen. I take back what I said, and I agree that we live in the moment, and that is the key. And as far as safeguards, now when we start looking at aluminum being bombarded by scalar energy or very high frequency energy, it becomes aluminum-26, an isotope itself, and it becomes dangerous because it becomes radioactive itself. So I have a solution that's fun and it's kind of nifty. It's kind of fun. At the local store, sometimes you find these pot scrubbers made from a mesh that look like a donut. It's a copper pot scrubber, and they have a little spot weld in the middle, and if you kind of just gently pull that apart, you'll find yourself a mesh tube when you unroll it. And they usually come in packages of 3, and you put one inside the other, and you've got yourself this big 3-layered tube. And if you twist it in the middle and fold one edge back over, stick it over your head, you've got yourself a copper mesh Faraday cage for less than probably 50p.
Okay, that's interesting. We'll have to look into that. All right, guys, listen, thanks a lot for coming on the show. It's much appreciated. We've reached that time. So before we go, I'm going to go around to the 3 of you to get your contact details or people where they can find you. So, Pattie, if you want to give out your website or your details where people can find out more about yourself.
Pattie L. Brassard on Facebook or my email, which is Pattie, which is PATTIE B as in boy, dash, FINE at Comcast.net.
Brilliant.
Everything else I had, they wiped out.
Okay. Karen.
Right now, probably the most exciting thing here is at clanmother13 at gmail.com, and that's KLAN for mother 13 at Gmail. Facebook is definitely a viable option. That's Karen and MacDonald or Karen MacDonald. We have several different on Facebook, and at Skype it's called not at all this, I may screw this up. It's CALLED, Karen Mac. And we do, if someone wants to assist, we've also got Peter Collins here. He's got a cell phone available at 613-316-8212, and we're just around the Ottawa area too, because we can certainly use all the assistance we can get here right now, and he's available to text at that particular number. So
okay.
That would be very, very helpful for right now as well. So we'd appreciate anything along that line.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks. All right, Daniel, you have your details there?
Basically, what I'm doing is I am so busy with what I'm doing with the teams of manifestors that we are dealing with now, and making preparations so that we make media releases so that other manifestors can join in and know the specific details. I'm really way overwhelmed, and so I defer everything to Karen and to Pattie as far as if they need input from me, then they can contact either one of those, and then they can trickle it down to me, because it's my job as a light soldier to put the teams in action now, and then of course as the information becomes public, then those manifestors will automatically just know what to do. They'll begin to pray, meditate, manifest for the same thing that they know what to do. And
okay.
So I'm kind of sequestered away in a little room, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. And I apologize for those who try to contact me. I'm not able to respond. I've got my plate full, so to speak. So I defer. If you want to communicate or send me an email, then pass it through Karen or pass it through Pattie. And then that way I can continue on, because it's like this is really getting busy.
Okay. Now that's brilliant, Dan. That's brilliant. Listen, thanks a lot for coming on. I have to go to a musical break and just finish up there. A big thank you for Daniel and Karen and Pattie for coming on the show. Loads of information there, loads of things to think about. Just stay with us there, and we're just going to a musical break. We'll be back after this.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
I think that's one of the jingles that I won't be playing again at the end. But there you go. What a great interview by Pattie, Karen and Daniel. Brilliant information. Again, guys, there's a lot of information in that interview that we just did. And you don't have to believe any of it, okay? You know, I always go back to Aristotle. The mark of an educated mind is to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it, okay? That's what an open mind is all about, to be able to entertain a thought. If you can't even entertain the thought, then you've got a closed mind. It's that simple. That's the way it works, okay? So, you know, I'm not saying what they said tonight is correct. I'm not saying it's right. But the one thing I will agree with them on is you do what you can in what you can in the environment that you're in. You know, service to others, help each other, try and stay healthy, try and keep away from the poisons as much as you can, and try and educate people as much as you can. I mean, if that's all you can do, that's brilliant. And if we keep doing that and we keep educating people and waking people up to what's going on, then, you know, hopefully we'll get the world that we want. Because what's going on now at the moment, and we can all see what's happening, is just kind of complete madness. Now, I said a couple of things just at the end of the show regarding the financial system. And just out of curiosity, I'm reading these out. I mean, all these things could be changing. But Dabu7, who's a YouTuber, was talking about the financial markets across the world took a crushing blow last week as exuberant investors from Asia and the United States came to the realization that the economy may not be doing as well as governments want us to believe. That something big is coming should be a foregone conclusion, especially considering that sophisticated, high net worth investors are positioning themselves like never before in a physical precious metals into physical, they're buying. Now, Michael Noonan, it was said during the week in the mainstream news that Michael Noonan went off and sold a lot of shares apparently and bought precious metals. And they said, oh, this guy's, you know, Michael Noonan is a shrewd investor. Now, why is Michael Noonan doing that? You know, he's obviously doing it for a reason. He knows something's going on. And maybe it's because of the fiat currency that we have. We all know it's worthless. It's not backed by anything. And he knows that. And he's probably just getting out of the game himself. Now, Dabu7 also goes on to say that, but they aren't alone, according to insiders like First Mining Finance Mineral Bank, found that Keith Nemeyer and silver investor David Morgan. In an unprecedented move, major financial institutes operating in the shadows are reportedly gobbling up silver and gold coins and small bullion bars at such extreme levels that mints in Australia, Canada and the United States are unable to keep up with the demand. Now, obviously, we know that you can barter with gold and silver, but you can't eat it unless it's metallic gold. But it's interesting that Michael Noonan was doing that. But there you go. Anyway, I haven't heard from Steve, so I'm hoping everything's okay. I will contact him now as soon as I finish the show. I hope everything's okay. As I say, a family member had an emergency with a family member there, so he couldn't do the show tonight. So, but for myself anyway, Alan James, take it easy, stay safe, have a good week. If you have any information, email it off to us and let us know. Next week, Steve won't be with us. He's away in the jolly. So I'm going to be on with Karen Quinn Tostado, and we might have somebody else on as well. We'll see what happens next week. But until then, take care and we'll catch you later. Bye bye.